What's up, y'all? One Piece, One Life here, and y'all, yeah, look around. New space. I'm back at my family's house, and needless to say, I'm gonna need some One Piece stuff back here. I don't know how, but I'm gonna need to do it. Now, you know we're in a new space, but that doesn't mean that the content stops. I mean, look at this. I got a new spotlight, and there's a shadow. It's new. Wow. It's so freeing. But now see, as I was thinking about this new spotlight, the term spotlight stuck in my head, and I started thinking, spotlight. What are some One Piece characters that I wish had more spotlight? What are the characters that kind of fly under the radar, but I want to give it more appreciation for, in terms of I want to see them more in the story because I like them, I find them at least slightly interesting. But that's just what this video is. I'm going to be telling you guys all the characters that I personally wish had a bit more spotlight in the One Piece story. But before we get into it, guys, please, if you love the new look, y'all know what to do. Like the video, subscribe to the channel for more One Piece content just like this, and share it around with all your friends who love the series. Let's get it going. Now, first up on the docket of people who I wish had a bit more spotlight on them is gonna be Jozu and Vista. Now, calling Diamond Jozu and Flower Sword Vista background characters is a disservice to them because they put in work during the Marineford War. Jozu saved his captain/crew on at least 3 different occasions, being the blocking of Mihawk's strongest slash, jumping Crocodile when he was trying to get at Whitebeard, and clashing with Admiral Aokiji. Jozu's also crazy strong. He lifted a literal large ice mass and just threw it at the Marines. A pure strength feat comparable to what Jesus Burgess did with the literal super strength devil fruit. Meanwhile, Vista has some amazing showings too, clashing and holding off the world's strongest swordsman, such to the extent that Mihawk himself thought to himself that it would take more effort to scrap. Clashing and holding off the world's strongest swordsman, such to the extent that Mihawk himself began to think that it would take more effort to defeat Vista than he would be bothered to spend. He also fought against and kind of held off Akainu, and while this was a tag team with Marco, you have to remember that we're talking about Marineford Akainu, the same Akainu that's been on smoke for 4 hours, just killing people on both sides. The same Akainu that put a donut hole through Ace. The same Akainu that blew off half of Whitebeard's head. With each of these entries that I give, I'm gonna give a scenario where I think they could have or can in the future play into the story. And with these 2 specifically, I think it would be really great if Oda included them within the whole Weevil plotline. As we know, the last time we saw Marco and Miss Buckin on Sphinx Island, Miss Buckin was crying because Weevil just got carted off and captured by Green Bull, and she was asking Marco, hey, he defended this place, do something about it. Marco just got back from Wano, and he saw what happened the last time he left, so he's not inclined to leave himself, but what he could do is call up some old war buddies to help him take out the trash. I personally feel like that whole plotline is a waste, but hey, Oda's introduced it, so now let's do something with it. Side note, it's also been noted that Vista has a very strong rivalry with Yasop on Shanks' crew of all people. So this is another capacity in which we can see more from Vista in particular, just trying to figure out what the heck they're fighting for. My headcanon answer is that way back in the day, both of them were growing mustaches, and they were actually like mustache rivals to see who could have the better mustache, and it was actually Yasop leading, such to the extent that the last time they saw each other, Vista got jealous and just slashed it all up, and they've had beef ever since. Now, for another character that showed up a lot during the Paramount War saga, I'm gonna give spotlight to Inazuma. Now, when Inazuma first showed up, I really liked their aesthetic, you know, the 2-tone hair, and same thing with the jacket was really cool, the goggles, and then of course their devil fruit was very wacky interesting for One Piece because it was based on the concept of cutting paper. I mean, they even got a fairly high position in the Revolutionary Army because they're the second command of the entire Grand Line branch, and they definitely had a significance in Impel Down, like being the one to pick Crocodile and Jinbei's locks to free them, using their fruit in very handy ways to help, create pathways for the Alliance to escape. And they were even the one who found Luffy and Bon Clay in the freezing hell after they had taken on the wolves or whatever. However, after Impel Down, there was significantly less of them in the story. Now, this is natural because Oda introduced a lot of moving parts and a lot of powerful characters during the Marineford War. So naturally, some people just had to fall by the wayside. They did have their one shining moment during the Marineford War where they randomly popped out of Ivanka's hair and then created a pathway for Luffy to actually, get to Ace's execution platform. But after that, they were kind of irrelevant. So I think to include them more in the story, they could have been sent alongside Sabo's group when they were sent to Dressrosa, so that when we realize that there's a revolutionary army presence on Dressrosa, we're getting old and familiar faces alongside the new ones. In fact, next up, we're even going to talk about somebody else who was part of Sabo's crew in Dressrosa, and that's Hack. I mean, we all know who Hack is, right? When we first met Hack, he was just a participant in the Corridor Coliseum, fighting his way through, I think it was the B block, and trying to get the Marimaro no Mi. Though I guess now with the context that we know, he was trying to get it for Sabo. And the most memorable part of his entire involvement was his arm getting broken against Bartolomeo's barrier. Side note, how do you pronounce Bart's name? Bartolomeo? Bartolomeo? Let me know in the comments, I'm confused. But after that, he was largely kind of irrelevant. Yeah, he had some moments here and there, but it was like typical Oda tertiary character business. I think that for Hack, him being part of the strike team that went to attack the Holy Land with, Sabo and the rest of the commanders, I think that would have been cool to see, because then we could see his fishman karate on display. But we could also see a fishman who is, in this world, they've actively been oppressed, especially by the Celestial Dragon so much. A fishman be the one to go against them. That's thematically appropriate. But since he's also a fishman karate instructor, why not have him teach Robin some fishman karate? I mean, I know it's Koala who taught her how to use like the palm strike she was using in Wano, but just have a flashback of him honing those and then also teaching her some of the more punch-based attacks. I mean, he's literally a fishman karate master. And speaking of fishmen, we also learned that he's friends with Jinbei. So another way we could see this is like maybe some sort of flashback or even SBS thing of just how the two of them became friends, how they met. Is that too much to ask, Oda? A panel of how Jinbei and Hack met? Next up, we're talking about Hogback. Now, out the gate, I have to stress how detestable of a character Hogback is. What he did to Sindri was just disgusting and appalling to see. It just makes him a truly horrible person. So much so that I'm even appalled that I forgot to include him in my most hated characters video I did a while back. But with all that being said, I still feel like Hogback's character is the prime archetype that Oda usually uses to receive a cover story. Now, one reason we haven't seen him, or there's no discourse about him, is maybe because people think he's dead, since a lot of people seem to remember that the last time we saw him is when Oars stepped on him like a bug. But no, at the end of the Thriller Bark arc, he escapes with Moria and Absalom. In fact, they're the ones who take Moria's unconscious body away from there. So given this, I think that the cover series could show a retrospective look on what happened to Hogback and Absalom, their journey after the Thriller Bark arc. And part of it would be Moria leaving to attend the Paramount War and then them having to save him from Doflamingo afterwards. Maybe it shows them, journeying together, getting into some shenanigans before eventually splitting off, since we know that Absalom eventually splits off from the rest of them to go and become a journalist. Look, all I'm saying is that if Caesar, Judge, and Caribou can get cover stories, Hogback should be able to too. Now, next up as another character that I really want to shine some light on is Streusen. Now, some of you are probably not even sure who the heck Streusen is, and I can't blame you. I can't lie, I don't even like Streusen. I don't think he's enough of an interesting character on his own. I mean, fair enough, he was part of the Rocks Pirates since he joined up whenever Linlin did. During the Whole Cake Island arc, he did have his shining moment where he turned the entirety of Whole Cake Chateau into a gâteau, which is cake in French, but interestingly cat in Spanish. Language is weird, with his cook fruit, saving about 1,000+ people in one go. But the reason I'm putting him on this list is because the entirety of the Big Mom Pirates as we know them would not exist if not for Streusen, because he was the one manipulating Linlin's strength ever since she was a kid. I don't know, I just find it crazy that the man who was responsible for the entirety of the Big Mom operation was in about 10% of the Big Mom focused arc, if not less. I've seen people say, well, the suggestion could be, what if Stroyson made the cake that Sanji originally did in order to, stop Big Mom's hunger tantrum? But I don't like that for two reasons. One, we already know that Stroyson was heavily brutalized because he couldn't protect himself while saving those other people. And two, that would take away from what I believe is a very powerful Sanji moment. So what I want instead would be a kind of retrospective flashback look as to what it was like starting up the Big Mom Pirate organization. How did they find / take over whatever Whole Cake Island used to be, and then expanded the territory? And then also seeing what he was like on the Rocks crew and whether he was, strong enough, whether he was part of their actual fighters. We do see him very at the edge of when all the Rocks pirates were finally shown in the manga recently. Now, another Big Mom pirate that I want to give emphasis to is Charlotte Smoothie. Now again, it's not like Smoothie got nothing. There was that time when she was first introduced, when she used the powers of her ring fruit to literally juice a giraffe. One Piece is weird. She was the one stationed to guard the poneglyphs, which means Big Mom actually trusted her enough to guard the poneglyphs. Except not really, because then Big Mom came anyways and then did it herself. And she was the one leading the chase against the Straw Hats as they were escaping by sea. But I just feel like, as the person who's hailed as the third strongest person on Big Mom's entire crew, more spotlight needed to be shown on her, kind of give her the same treatment that Queen got in Wano. And I know that it's not the same because Wano was an actual whole fight arc, whereas here it was just a quick extract mission. But I still think that something could have changed to, help her status. I think a brief fight between her and Jinbei or her and Sulong Carrot would have been really great to see. And it didn't even have to be, where they defeat her outright. They could have just hold her off, escape, or, just some other plot convenient thing, but that also shows her in a really good light. To be fair, we may be getting more of her now, since in literally the latest chapter of 1114, Oda chose her to specifically focus on when showing that Big Mom pirates were back and reacting to Vegapunk's message. It may even be through her, and at least her point of view, that we see Big Mom introduced in the story for the first time since her defeat at Wano, as I explained in my last video. But by far, the character I would say I wish had the most spotlight shown on her, the character who I would go as far as to say I have an agenda for, is Smoothie's sister, Charlotte Compote. And damn, shout out to Big Mom Pirates for real for having so many characters that are so interesting but not fleshed out, which I guess is what happens when you introduce 100+ characters in one arc. Now see, here I actually have to rant about Compote, because the thing is, unlike every other character on this list, even Smoothie, Compote was hyped up, built up to be something that she ended up not being, and that makes me mad. She was stated in the manga to be one of Big Mom's monsters, comparable to, if not slightly less than, the Sweet Commanders. That places her in the same ballpark range of Perospero, Daifuku, and Oven, essentially meaning that she's definitely top 8 in Big Mom's crew. She was on Big Mom's ship going to Wano. I mean, Smoothie was too, but we're focusing on Compo here. She was featured prominently in both of Whole Cake Island's anime openings, and now I know that the anime takes creative liberties, so it's technically separate from the manga and whatever, but still, I feel like even in that case, the anime team could have, given her more scenes, more filler scenes, instead of giving us just the same reaction shots 20 times in the same episode. And I mean, she is literally the first daughter. How can there not be a focus on her? Especially since we know that all of this special treatment isn't just reserved for the Sweet Commanders, because it literally happened with her male counterpart, the first son, Perospero. So my idea is, what if Compo plays a similar role in the final saga as Perospero did in Wano, being the main advisor as the eldest child left? Especially since this is the only other person, at least age-wise, that Big Mom can defer to. Katakuri is still on Whole Cake Island, as we saw in Caesar's cover story, and Perospero is, hopefully, dead. All I'm saying is I really truly hope that my queen finally gets the spotlight that she deserves, and I really, really hope that when Oda does introduce her properly, she has the fruit. Because look at this thing on her head and tell me that that's not the perfect devil fruit to give this grooming. Oda, you are missing a golden opportunity. But that's just a short list of the characters that I personally wish would have more spotlight. What obscure background characters do you really like and wish you could see more? I'm actually interested in this because I may do a part 2, so let me know about all that in the comments. That's the end of the video, y'all, but please guys, before we go, y'all know what to do. Like the video, subscribe to the channel for more One Piece content just like this. Just because it's summer break doesn't mean it's a break for me. And share it around with all your friends who love this series, who love anime, manga, or maybe who just you'll think they like my vibe. I don't know. Remember, I'm trying to build a community, but I need your help to do it. Well, that's gonna be all from me, guys. I'll catch y'all next week. And always remember, One Piece, one life. Okay, nah, seriously guys, how do you say Bart's name? How do you pronounce it? Literally, the whole time that I was recording this video, it's been bugging me in the back of my mind. Like, what is it? Is it Bartolomeo? Is the pronounce on the low? Is it Bartolomeo? Like, guys, this is urgent. I need help. Please tell me.